This goes without saying. Michael Jeffrey Jordan is the best basketball player the game has ever seen. However, as of late, it seems like people are trying to find something in order to knock Michael Jordan off the mountaintop. And one of the most common ways that people do this is to simply say, you know what, MJ played nobodies, he faced plumbers. Time for me to go ahead and spit that hoops gospel.
Batman, 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 what? Batman, Batman, yeah. Batman, yeah. Batman, yeah. Batman, Batman, hey, Batman, Batman, what? Mr. Never use a gap, man. Yeah. Never turn like a bat fan.
What is going on, y'all? This is your boy A1 Hoops back up in your notification box once again. And before we go ahead and get into today's video, make sure you guys stop what you're doing and follow me on all these social media platforms for daily NBA content, and definitely hit that subscribe button if you haven't, because you know I need it. Now, with that being said, Michael Jordan, once again, was the best player in hoop history. I don't care what you bronzesexuals think. But because of this, people try to find something, anything, to diminish your greatness. That's just how it is. And the way people have chosen to diminish Michael Jordan as the best player ever is simply to say, you know what, he faced bad competition, he faced plumbers, no good teams. Well, that's exactly what this video is for. I'm going to break down each championship run and tell you just how great the competition was. First up, we're going to be talking about 1991, and the most common thing you might hear haters of MJ say is, hey, you know what, the Pistons were old when he finally beat them, which wasn't true. Isaiah Thomas was 29, Joe Dumars was 27, and not to mention, they literally had Dennis Rodman, who was the defensive player of the year that season, and Buddy was only 29 years old. So when you said the Pistons was old, have no clue what you're talking about. Now, let's talk about the Lakers, because this is a big one. Everyone loves to say that the Lakers were washed up and trash, but take a look at the screen to find out how true or not true that actually is. The Lakers in 91 won 58 games. They were both top 5 in offense and defense. They were the preseason favorites over the Bulls. Literally had more All-Stars on the team than the Bulls did. And not to mention the fact that they literally were in the finals the year prior. This was one of Magic's best seasons in which he didn't win MVP. And in fact, he came in second place in the MVP voting to, did you guess Michael Jordan? Yeah, you were right. So not really sure where the Lakers were trash narrative came from, but it needs to stop. They were a great team still. And in fact, Magic didn't even get diagnosed with HIV until a few months after that finals. Now, next up, we're going to be talking about 1992. The Jordans Bulls' first repeat. In these playoffs, the Bulls actually faced a lot of solid teams. They beat a 52-win Knicks team who were literally ranked second in defense for the entire NBA, coached by Pat Riley. They had guys like Patrick Ewing, John Starks. Then they went on to beat a 57-win Cavs team who had the second best offense in the entire NBA. Now, believe it or not, the finals was actually the highlight of the competition for this season, and they went on to face the Clyde Drexler-led Portland Trail Blazers, who were literally third in defense, seventh in offense, and they had Clyde Drexler at his absolute peak, who at this time was second in MVP voting to Michael Jordan. The Bulls would go on to win that series in 6. Michael Jordan played phenomenally, and on both ends, not just offense, he actually locked up Clyde Drexler pretty damn badly. And a lot of people like to say it was Scottie Pippen, but those people never watched the finals. Now let's go ahead and move on to 1993, where the Bulls would chase their first three-peat, something that hasn't been done since the Bill Russell Celtics way back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the competition for that playoff run. In the second round of the playoffs, the Bulls will be matched up against a 54-win Cavs team who are ranked 3rd in offense and 6th in defense. Not really much weak about that team. Then they would go on to face a 60-win Knicks team, which is one of the best defensive teams the NBA has ever seen, and they were coached by Pat Riley. But because the Bulls had Michael Jeffrey Jordan, you know, the best player ever, they would go on to win that series. And then they would move on to face the Phoenix Suns, who were a 62-win team. They were literally ranked 1st in offense. Yes, they were better than the Bulls offensively, and they were top 10 in defense. And they had a man who went by Charles Barkley, who was a top 5 power forward ever, and he was actually league MVP that season. And people like to say, oh, well, Michael Jordan was guarded by Dan Marley. Dan Marley was literally a part of the all-defensive second team. So, not sure what y'all getting at. This was a great team, but Michael Jordan, as I mentioned earlier, was the best ever. Now, after this, Michael Jordan would retire to go ahead and play a new sport. He would return in the 95 season, and the Bulls would lose in the second round to the Orlando Magic. But let's take a look at 1996, which is known as the redemption season. The Chicago Bulls went 72-10, and in the third round of the playoffs, the conference finals, the Bulls would match up with a 60-win Shaq and Penny Orlando Magic team who were ranked 3rd in offense, 12th in defense, and yet the Bulls would go on to sweep this team. Now, mind you, this is arguably the best Orlando Magic team that we've ever seen. Now, they would move on to the NBA Finals, where they would face off against a 64-win Seattle Supersonics team, and they were led by the Defensive Player of the Year in Gary Payton, coached by George Karl, who also had an All-Star in Sean Kemp, and this team won 60 games multiple years. So explain to me how this team was weak or trash. They were also ranked 3rd defensively. Now the Bulls will go on to win that series in 6, capturing their 4th NBA championship, and I have still not seen any weak competition that so many people have said. Let's go ahead and move on to the 1997 playoffs, arguably the toughest competition that MJ ever saw in any single championship run. In just the second round of the playoffs, the Bulls would match up against a 56-win Atlanta Hawks team who were led by the Defensive Player of the Year in Dikembe Mutombo and also had a 20-point per game scorer in Steve Smith. They were ranked 3rd in defense, 8th in offense. They would beat this team in 5. They would also move on to face a 60-win Miami Heat team led by Tim Hardaway and Alonzo Mourning. They won 61 games and they were coached by Pat Riley, ranked 1st in defense. But let these bronzexuals tell you, and MJ faced trash competition. They'll move on to face the Utah Jazz in the 1997 NBA Finals, who won 64 games and were the second best offensive team in the league. They were also top 10 defensively, and they had the MVP of the NBA in Karl Malone. And the Bulls would go ahead and win this series in 6 games, led by Michael Jordan, who supposedly faced trash competition. Let's go ahead and move on to 1998, the final championship of his career, to go ahead and seal the second three-peat. In the conference finals, they would match up against a 58-win Indiana Pacers team led by Reggie Miller. This team was top 5 in both offense and defense, and the Bulls would win in 7 games, in large part to the best player ever in Michael Jeffrey Jordan. They will go on to face the Utah Jazz once again in the NBA Finals. And this year, they won 62 games. They were ranked 1st in offense. They were literally a better offensive team than the Chicago Bulls. And the Bulls went ahead and won that series in 6 games. And we already know how that series ended. It ended with the last shot of Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls career. Let's go ahead and dive a little bit deeper into Michael Jordan's competition, just in case that wasn't enough for you. When it comes to facing 60-win teams, Michael Jordan was 7-2 against all teams that won at least 60 games. And right on the screen, I have it compared to some other all-time greats in NBA history. And if you would notice, almost everybody either broke even against 60-win teams or had a losing record against them, except Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Now, maybe you're still not convinced that Michael Jordan faced great competition. Maybe this will help. Let's take a look at Michael Jordan's playoff record against some of the best players in his era. Now, in the 90s, he had a 4-1 record against Magic Johnson, 12-4 against Charles Barkley, 7-4 against Isaiah Thomas, 19-8 against Patrick Ewing, 6-4 against Shaq, 8-4 against Stockton and Malone, 4-2 against Clyde, 4-2 against Gary Payton, and 4-3 against Reggie Miller. He completely dominated against some of the best players the game has ever seen. Now, maybe you're still not convinced. Well, consider this. The 1992 NBA Dream Team is widely considered one of the best teams to have ever been assembled, and literally Michael Jordan has beaten every single member of that team in a playoff series, with the exception of David Robinson and Larry Bird. Now, maybe you're still not convinced. Maybe your bronzexual tendency is just getting the best of you. More power to you, man. Get help. Let's take a look at something called SRS. Now, SRS stands for Simple Rating System, and it's used to determine how tough any particular championship run is. It uses things like margin of victory and strength of schedule. And when we look at something like SRS, what we see is Hakeem Olajuwon and Kobe Bean Bryant faced the best competition ever, according to SRS. And right in third place, there's this guy named, oh yeah, that's Michael Jordan. So even according to something like SRS, Michael Jordan faced great competition. Now next up, we're going to be looking at playoff defense. Through Michael Jordan's 6 championship runs with the Chicago Bulls, he was matched up against a top 5 defense in 10 different playoff series. So against the very best defense the NBA had to offer, let's take a look at what Michael Jordan was able to do against those teams. Against top 5 defenses, this is what Michael Jordan was able to do. 31.3 points per game, 5.6 assists, 6.2 boards, 1.9 steals. He shot 46% from the field, 32% from 3. He shot 84% from the free throw line with a true shooting percentage of 55%. Look, at the end of the day, there's no way you can cut it or slice it to make it seem like Michael Jordan faced weak comp or a weak era. And I just hope you guys have learned something. That was the video. Hopefully you guys see that Michael Jordan did face some great competition. And if you like the video, if you like what I do, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button because you know I need it. And A1 Hoops signing off. Have a good one.